Hey, thanks so much for joining us here on 90s Plus. I'm Chris Bianchi. So we're heading into the fall, and that means that it is vaccine season, and there's 3 vaccines that you at least need to be thinking about getting for this upcoming fall, and some of those may not be the ones you might be thinking about top of mind. So we're going to get into what you should be thinking about in terms of COVID, in terms of the flu, and also from a broad perspective to keep you safe for this upcoming fall and cold winter season, cold weather season here into the winter. And joining us for a bit more about this is 90s medical expert Dr. Payal Kohli. Dr. Kohli, thanks for being with us here today.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
So, important topic. So, first of all, we've got a lot of things out there. We mentioned RSV, mentioned the flu, mentioned COVID. Is it COVID that is still top of mind, the most important thing to think about this winter?
You know, I want us to stop talking about COVID like a booster. I want us to start talking about it like an annual vaccination.
Okay.
Because we now really are living alongside the virus. It's endemic. And just like we get our flu shot every year, we need to start getting in the mindset of getting that COVID shot every year. And this is the first year that we are going to think about getting it at the same time as we get our flu shot. And what's different and unique about this year, Chris, and you mentioned, is the RSV vaccine is for the first time ever approved for Americans over the age of 60. So most of us are going to get 2 shots, COVID and the flu. If we're over the age of 60, we're actually going to get 3 shots, COVID, flu, and RSV.
So top line takeaway, if you're under 60, COVID and flu, 60 or over, COVID, flu, and RSV, correct?
You got it.
Okay,
Yeah.
So those are top line takeaways, but we're going to get into a bit more detail about this. Let's say a common question I hear all the time, and this is not certainly in a combative way, but a common thing I hear a lot of people my age saying, well, I'm young and healthy. Do I really need that COVID booster? There's been some maybe degradation of that, specifically from the state of Florida. I'm just going to say that in general. How do I think about that?
Yeah, I hear this question all the time from my patients as well. And I would say absolutely yes, because that COVID vaccine, regardless of your age, is going to protect you before, during, and after. So let me talk you through that. So before, it reduces your chance of getting the infection. Now, that's not 100%. It never is. No vaccine is. But it makes it highly likely that you're going to be protected by kind of boosting your immune system and your antibodies, especially as we know that the viral activity is going up as the weather gets colder and we start to congregate more indoors. Now, let's say you do end up getting the infection. It still protects you because it makes your infection milder. It makes you less infectious to others. It makes you recover more quickly. It makes you obviously less likely to end up in the hospital or, have some serious complication. And then even after you've recovered, it actually reduces your chances of getting long COVID. So I would say for 6 months or older and more than 2 months out from your last COVID infection or COVID vaccine, you need to get that COVID shot this fall because it's going to protect you before, during, and after. And we know that now with several years of safety data, literally millions and maybe billions of people who've been exposed to this, it's very safe and well tolerated. And there's a lot of concerns people have about this myocarditis signal, inflammation of the heart muscle,
I've heard that,
especially in young men. I'm a cardiologist, and I have yet to see a case of myocarditis. So it exists, but it's so rare in terms of the risk-benefit that you're far more likely to benefit from the vaccine on so many different levels than you are to have some sort of a risk, a small risk of a condition like myocarditis.
Okay, so with that in mind, when should we get it, and should we be thinking about maybe side effects that come from that as well?
So the timing is important with the flu and with the COVID vaccine and with others, because you don't want to get it too early because then the antibodies start to wane later in the season, and the flu season lasts us through March or April. When the weather is cold, basically flu thrives, and you don't want to get it too late because then you're not protected. So I like to say, and this kind of applies to COVID as well, that between kind of mid-September, which is where we're at now, and Halloween. So flu before boo. You want to get your flu shot before Halloween comes. Now, let's say you happen to miss that window for whatever reason. I really think you should schedule it now, but you happen to miss it. You should still go get it because, like I said, that activity, whether it's flu or COVID, is going to continue to last well into the spring, and so you want to continue to protect yourself. If you're trying to plan the timing of it and such, after you get the vaccine, you might have a day or two of malaise, fatigue, muscle aches, or pains. So I generally like to get it like on a Friday or something when you can kind of take it easy over the weekend. You don't want to get it right before you travel or you have something important coming up. And you want to get at least 2 weeks before some sort of a major trip. Like if you think you're going to Mexico, for the fall, you want to make sure that you time the booster at least 2 weeks before so that your antibodies really have had time to build up and you're maximally protected by the time you travel. Because right after you get the shot, you're not really fully protected for a couple of weeks.
Okay, so give it 2 weeks before a major trip. Try and give yourself a couple days to recover from some of those side effects that may come from that. Okay, so I think that's, from the COVID side of things, I think that's got us pretty covered. What should we think outside of COVID with the flu? Do we have an idea about how the flu season may be shaping up from South America?
Well, because of the pandemic and many of the ways in which not just our behaviors, but our immune system has been altered because of the pandemic, we are seeing a lot of people getting sicker and getting sicker in ways that we're not accustomed to. And that could be partly because our immune system sort of got out of shape because of the last few years we've been sort of in pandemic lockdown mode. So certainly I want people to take the flu seriously. There continue to be deaths from the flu, including children, including young adults, and including obviously older adults, especially those that are immunocompromised. So pregnant women, immunocompromised, those people certainly are in a much higher risk category, but even for the rest of us, the flu can be very, very serious. And it's not just days missed from work. It can obviously end you up in the hospital. It can, cause long-term complications as well. So we want to stay on top of it. If you're over the age of 65, there's actually a special flu shot that you need to get. And there's a few different choices. But the idea there is that your immune system is just not as robust. It's not as much in shape. It doesn't make those antibodies as robustly as a young person's. So to sort of help the immune system, to tickle it a little bit more, they either give you a higher dose of the flu vaccine, so to trigger more of that response, or they add something called an adjuvant, which is a stimulant of the immune system in other ways, just so that you can kind of catch up to those younger people. So if you're over the age of 65, be sure to request that special flu shot. Mostly the pharmacist will automatically sort of lean you towards that. And in terms of efficacy of the different types of flu shots, there's many different ones out there. They're mostly the same. I generally do prefer the intramuscular flu shots, even for our kids, because those have kind of better data than some of the intranasal and other types of flu shots.
Interesting. I always learned something new. I didn't know there was a different kind of flu shot for 65 and over. When it comes to RSV specifically, how big of a threat is that at the stage? I know you mentioned that vaccine for 60 and over. Tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, so RSV, respiratory syncytial virus, has been around for decades, and it's something that you get at extremes of age. You can get it any time, but the people that end up in the hospital are the young kids or the very much older adults. And the problem is RSV is not just a cold that you get over. RSV is actually shown to cause some sort of damage to our lungs. And so getting an RSV infection is not just a benign thing. It can leave lingering effects from the inflammation created by the acute infection. So this has been a great year because now we've gone from 1 to 3 vaccines, and for the first time for people over the age of 60, we have an RSV vaccine that's been FDA approved, and it's recommended, and it's safe and well tolerated. Certainly I'm telling my mom and any family friends that are over the age of 60, all my patients that are, to go and get that vaccine, because again, getting that is not just getting a cold, it can actually leave long-term side effects.
Under 60, how concerned should we be with RSV?
You still want to continue those behaviors that protect you from respiratory viruses, because RSV activity is going to go up. We have our kids in daycares and back in school, and RSV in the winter seasons does naturally go up. Now this year we're seeing sort of even an earlier peak. In other words, we even saw a lot of RSV activity over the summer, which was unusual, but that was the lingering effects of the pandemic. So it's hard to predict exactly how tall that peak is going to be, but I think that peak is very much going to be dynamic based on our behaviors. So I know for myself and to protect my patients, now that COVID activity is up, the weather's getting a little cooler, I have started masking again in indoor spaces like on airplanes and crowded grocery stores or in malls or what have you, as a way to keep myself and my patients a little bit healthier. So if you are concerned or you're one of those high-risk groups, it might not be a bad idea for you to start doing that again. And again, remember, this is a dynamic thing. So it doesn't mean forever. It just means when the weather's cold and the viruses are misbehaving, we whip out our tools, which are the mitigation measures. We wash our hands, we make sure we don't keep touching our face, we make sure we wear those masks, and we make sure that we test frequently. Those are the ways in which we can keep that virus away from us and keep ourselves healthy.
Specifically when it comes to masking, this will be kind of my final question, maybe tips because I think about airplanes, which we've talked about before, are fairly well ventilated because there's that constant recycling of the air. Are there places that we should be, if you were with your mom, for example, or something like that, where would you be telling her or yourself to be masking up?
I would say where there are a lot of strangers coming and going from different places that have had a lot of contact. And so I do think about airplanes, even though they're well ventilated, people are traveling from all over. They're exposed to a lot of people as they're traveling, right? And then you're sitting next to them for a long period of time. So I think that I'm definitely going to recommend to her to mask on airplanes. The other places is anywhere else that there's kind of high contact surfaces. For example, going to the bank, going to the ATM, where you're touching things that other people have touched, and then you maybe have the potential to touch your face. That mask does add a layer of protection as well when you're going into those types of environments. Now, when it comes to our friends and family members, we can have get-togethers this season, and that's what's really great about the vaccines and the fact that the COVID virus has evolved a little bit and become a little less virulent, is that this is not going to be another lockdown type of holiday season. And even if the cases go up, we have the tools in our toolbox, we have treatments, we have tests, we kind of know what we're dealing with, so we're in a whole different position than we were a few years ago.
Well, thank goodness for that. And anything else to add about COVID and where we stand from a broad perspective?
I would just say that vaccinations have given us back our life. And we can't forget that. We can't get complacent. And it was disappointing for me to see that the last round of boosters had so few Americans actually go to get it. So I hope we sort of step up to the challenge here. Just think about this as our annual vaccination, getting our immune system in shape for what's coming, and go out there, get ourselves protected. And you can get all those shots at the same time. So people often ask me that as well. Can I get all 3 vaccines or 2 vaccines, depending on what you're eligible for at the same time? Absolutely, they're safe and they're effective, and you can get one in each arm, or you can get them in the same arm about an inch apart, whatever works for you. But just go and get it done, because it's really an investment in your immune system savings bank.
Absolutely. All right, flu before boo. You heard it here first. Dr. Payal Kohli, thanks so much for joining us here.